Okay, so we are no strangers to unpopularity and unpopular opinions here at Big Week in Gaming. So we thought, why not formalize it with our most controversial and unpopular gaming opinions in a special segment this week we call Unpopular Gaming Opinions. So Mike, you have been on strong form today in terms of your popular and unpopular opinions. So have I to a degree. So why don't you open the batting and then we'll go around.
Okay, we'll go around.
Yeah, we'll
cool.
go around.
I don't want to do all three by myself. So some of you may have
That's
noticed.
what she said.
Bring it home. Come on.
Some of you may have noticed that the people that are watching the stream, not the people listening on the podcast, that I am wearing sunglasses. Now, part of it is because very strong lights, and it's starting to really bother my eyes in this dimly lit room every time I do the podcast. Partially also because my cat sleeps with his butt on my face, and I've got a bit of an eye infection now. But also partially because one of my unpopular... I'll give you guys a moment.
Go, keep going.
One of my unpopular gaming peeve thing is streaming celebrities. You know, douchebags like me being on stream, on Twitch, on whatever bloody...
Not like you. You're not a celebrity.
I know I'm
Wait,
not,
just
but I'm
clarify. This isn't pet peeves. It's unpopular opinion.
No, this is
Just
unpopular
confirm.
opinion.
Okay,
Because a lot of people love that shit. A lot of people love sitting there, and I know, you guys love that sometimes too. I fucking hate it. Where they sit and they just watch people play games on Twitch or whatever other platform. Instead of playing it themselves, they sit there for hours and hours and hours being entertained by that. I think the entire concept is just stupid.
So what's your opinion?
My opinion is that
People who are watching us now.
people who are watching us are fucking idiots.
What, so you're saying not? So you're saying any streamer at all? Any streamer at all is
No,
the whole concept of
I've got a
streaming.
headache.
I think it's got. I think that there's a time and place for it.
Okay.
I just think the fact that it's become so popular is ridiculous.
It's got two heading the water. It's just like, why are you two heading the water bottle? I've lost it. I'm just so visual.
He always two hands.
Anyway. Yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
Mike. I cut you off.
So look.
Time and place.
I think it's I come from the angle that people love that stuff. People love Twitch. It's huge. People love watching other people play games, even though I think it's fucking boring and mundane.
So what's the opinion again? Wait.
My
Are you
opinion
saying the
is that it's
streamers are dumb
stupid.
or the people who are watching
The whole
the stream?
concept, the whole bloody thing is dumb.
So streamers
about-
are dumb. People who watch streams are dumb. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not falling for that one. All I'm saying is the whole thing,
trying to
the whole
understand.
concept.
So are you including Let's Plays alongside streaming? Because
No, see, that's what I mean. I feel like there's certain parts. So, for example, when they do the charity runs, when they do the speed runs for a particular
No, I'm saying
event.
a
cool.
Let's Play where it's pre-recorded, it's not streamed, and they just play and comment and do provide commentary and everything. Are you bundling that in with general streaming?
No, not really. No, I don't bundle that.
Okay.
I'm thinking more.
So
more
that's
the kind
okay?
of
Let's
streaming
Plays are
where
okay?
you play, I don't know, World of Warcraft for 8 hours a day, and people tune in to just watch you play World of Warcraft for 8 hours a day, instead of at least playing it themselves or something.
You know,
that
the
kind of stuff.
And no, I think that is a really good unpopular opinion. I will say, because I do like to watch Let's Plays and stuff. Most of them are pre-recorded, but I think the thing is that often you're wanting to get people's different viewpoints, but also just the personality of the people playing. That's honestly the reason why most people watch that stuff. Is you're not watching because you want to watch someone play a game, if that makes sense. All the time. Some people might just want to watch purely.
But is it really? I mean, I tried. It's not that I haven't tried. I've tried. I opened up Twitch. I went to a bunch of streams. I went to a bunch of popular
Hot
streams.
tub.
Even that kind
Category.
of... That is the absolute worst.
ASMR.
It
Okay, all right,
blows
that's
my
it.
mind that people watch that shit.
Yeah, anyway, that's a whole separate
But
thing.
anyway,
So-
the point is, it's not like I haven't tried. I've tried. And every time
Yeah.
I try and open it up, I'm like, what the fuck am I wasting my time on?
See, I don't watch Twitch, but I watch Let's Plays. That's why I'm kind of interested to know if that was a different thing in your eyes. Because, for instance, like I've been saying, I've been watching a guy play through the Dark Souls games and watching his journey. And the thing is, a lot of it is the same as like watching reaction videos. Like Intergod and I watch a lot of music reaction, especially Numa, Danny
I literally was watching that today.
Danny Carey's drum cam. Yeah, and I watch other people react to it simply because I like you vicariously enjoying new things through people that you've already experienced. And it's completely ridiculous, but it's a weird psychological thing that is just inanely interesting to me sometimes. So anyway, but no, look, that's a really good first unpopular opinion. I'm interested to know what your others are.
Oh, that's a heavy hitter from the start.
Oh, wait, there's more.
Like just on my piece of the streaming thing, I think it's all about I think for me it's two things. It's like the personalities, like someone's just funny, naturally funny, and having them on in the background, it's like, oh yeah, okay, that's cool. And then the other part of it is, with speedrunners, like it's just interesting, like they're live doing what they do, and just watching. I watch sometimes like some Super Metroid speedrunners, and it's just crazy the amount of skill that they have. So it's
I respect it. I respect the thing behind it. Just the part where people waste 8 hours a day watching it, I don't get.
But I think you would have then the same opinion of sports. Like, why are people watching?
I do have the same opinion of sports,
which is also another extremely unpopular opinion.
Go play it yourself, Jesus Christ. That's the part I don't get. Like, is it that hard to go to a soccer field and hit a ball? Come on.
Yeah, like let's watch some Olympic diving. Oh no, just go do it yourself.
Why you don't? Okay, that's taking it to the extreme, but I think
it's a sport. Why? It's a sport.
It's a sport.
MMA.
No, but what I'm saying is, it's not that hard to pick up a footy and go outside and go hit a footy with your kid or your friend or your dog or whatever.
Hit a footy? You mean kick a footy?
Okay,
kick it, whatever. Hit it.
All
right.
Pass it. I don't know how football's played. I don't watch it, but
we need to do it in a different order or something, because I feel like Mike's just gonna blow us apart, Swinny. But
okay, do you want me to
go? No, I'll go to mine and then I'll go to yours, right? So so expectations, you got to lower them compared to Mike's. They're not going to be as controversial. So I'll just lead with the opinion, which is games are way too long. There's way too much filler in games, and gamers are wrong when they keep talking about, oh, this game is only 10 hours and I paid $60 for it. I didn't get enough value from the game. I hate that opinion, and I think it's completely batshit crazy. And I'll go to the next step where I'm like, Elden Ring is too long. Zelda Breath of the Wild is too long. And like, I loved Mario Odyssey. I loved it to death. I did everything in that game. And I know Swinny criticized it for this, but I actually agree. It's too long. Like, these games, all of these games are too long. There's too many extra caves, dungeons, levels where it's just, a mishmash of things that have come before it. And it just shits me. And it really pisses me off when, Miles Morales came out and everyone's like, oh, this is bullshit. This is like half a game because it's not long enough. Like, to me, I played Spider-Man Remastered just now. I'm like, this game is ridiculously long for the type of game it is. So that is my opinion. Games are too long and gamers are wrong about the value question. Swinny?
What do you think, Swinny?
As in my one, or do you want?
No. What do you think of what he just said?
I agree. 90% of that. There are certain genres where RPGs and JRPGs, for instance, where I think a longer game is actually beneficial to build the characters, and sometimes it's just the moment-to-moment dialogue between characters, but that stuff all adds up. That's why a lot of JRPGs are so long, is because there's just like the dialogue, and you can skip it all, but if you skip them all, then the games end up being super short anyway. But no, I agree. Like, Elden Ring is too long, in my opinion. I can't speak for Spider-Man, but there's games where, like the Order 1866, to me, that was super criticized for being too short, and it didn't have much content after you beat the game, but that was like a great, almost like, it's not movie length, it's longer than the movie, but it's like a movie length game, if that makes sense, where it's like, hey, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to play through this in a few days or a weekend, and it's just a one and done,
Yeah, and ultimately, I just feel like the editor has no power anymore in movies, films, books, everything. Like, look at all formats; they're all way longer. Like, all the Harry Potter books went from 300 pages to like 600-700 pages, and then they had to start splitting the books in half. Movies are way too long these days, and I do wonder if any element of that has got to do with just the Asia in terms of power and purchasing power and consumer power has just exploded in the last 10 years. So that's India, China in particular, but all of that region. And traditionally, those areas, the media has always been really long. Like Bollywood movies are like 4 hours long on average,
Jeez.
right? So,
Wow.
and Chinese movies is like not as long, but like always 3 hours plus, right? So, and I do wonder if that's had an influence on movies where they're sort of a bit like, well, the longer it is, the better. And same as games. It's like
That's what she said.
they mix it up, or they mix these sort of like fetch quests and things like that. It's like, oh, there's no penalty to do this. We've added 10 hours to the game. And your favorite series of all time, Assassin's Creed, is now probably the most infamous example of that, right? Like in terms of filler and length. So all right, so we need to go to your opinion.
Well, hang on. I had an opinion on this opinion.
Okay, go on.
I think the reason why so many gamers think they're not getting their money's worth is because they haven't gone to a massage parlor that gives happy endings where you pay $60 for like 10, 15 minutes maybe of enjoyment.
You're
And then
very
you walk out
familiar
and then you
with
go,
this.
man, that goes my weekly pay. When you have that experience, then you will start appreciating games for what they are. It's not about the length of it, it's about the quality of the experience.
Thank you for that input, Mike.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
We could call the episode Parlor. Par-law. Yeah, go on, sweetie.
Okay, so I am almost the king of unpopular opinions on this podcast
Yes.
when it comes to games. So a couple of quick fire ones.
Wait, you got more than three?
No,
Yeah,
these
how
are the
does that
quick
work?
fire obvious ones, right? That I've
Oh, okay.
Okay.
You're not saying.
yeah,
Okay.
no, like
Oh,
Odyssey.
man, I had a bunch of those.
Odyssey's the best.
Odyssey is the best Assassin's Creed game. Breath of the,
Get
off the
stage.
this is a quick fire. Don't keep talking over me. Breath of the Wild is a great game, but a horrible Zelda game. Final Fantasy 13 is a fantastic game. Cyberpunk 2077 doesn't deserve the hate. I like Mario 2 more than Mario 3, and
Yes!
Mass Effect 1 is the best in the series. There we go. There's some quick fire
Okay,
unpopular
fair enough.
opinions just to get them out. Clear
I
the
agree
air.
with a bunch of
Clear
them.
the
So.
air. Clear the air.
Even can I just say, even for your standards, when you said the Mario 2 is better than Mario 3 thing, and then you walked it back a bit, that's even
Yeah.
you knew how extreme that was of
Yeah.
what you said.
Yeah. Okay, so my actual unpopular opinion.
Okay.
I think the heralded game Bioshock is overrated.
Ooh.
Interesting. Okay.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
I like the game. I think it's a solid game that's got a really cool premise.
Which
and a
one? The
world.
Solid
series or the original? Or...
Shit.
I'm talking Bioshock 1. Just
What is
Bioshock.
he
Okay, the
talking
original
about?
Bioshock. Okay.
Yeah, anyway.
Yep.
So, like, I think it's a solid game, but with a really cool premise and world, right?
Yep.
When people were talking about this game, they're talking about it being like this crazy, wildly innovative game, the best game of all time and everything. And then I played it, I'm like,
When did
That's
you play
alright.
it? When did you play it?
I played
probably
it probably
launch.
about 6 months after launch or something.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, that's
So-
still well within.
Anyway,
the-
so to me,
hype
it's
period.
like a really pretty atmospheric FPS with some fancy magic abilities, with a great world. But it's like, other than that, I'm like, that's all right. Like, and I played through this game a few times. I even played it through to get the Brass Balls achievement, where you can't use the Vita chambers to respawn on the hard difficulty and all
damn.
this stuff. Like, so I feel I gave this game a really good shot. But to me, like, the game, the fact that it's an FPS but with a bit of exploration and everything like that, like, to me, a game that does that better and is the game that and it did get credit, but is the game that should have got the credit Bioshock did, is The Darkness. To me, that is a game that takes a spin on an FPS and is, to me, is way better. I think that's got a better storyline.
The Darkness.
The
Yeah,
Darkness.
the darkness.
And they probably didn't come out too far away from each other. Darkness, I imagine, came out after. But anyway, so that's my first unpopular opinion, is that Bioshock is overrated. It's a good game, but not the legendary game that people are making it out to be.
Whoa, I'm gonna get swamped in this this segment, man, by one crazy person and then one person who's got these deep cuts and the contrarian.
Would you kindly?
Are you
admit
gonna
you're
say
wrong?
something?
It's a good game. Nah, go on. I don't agree. That is actually a good one because I think a lot of people think it's a great game. I thought it was a great
A
game.
lot of people say it's the best game of all
But-
time. Like that's not a.
And he's even got that. Somewhere I've got the LP of the second one. Anyway.
How do I say this, Winnie? But I kind of almost. I don't agree. Well, I almost like kind of agree with what you're saying, but I disagree as well in the sense that I think this game can be considered a 10 out of 10, and then weirdly enough can also be overrated. And I'll say it like this, that I think some people do go way too over the top with this game, saying, oh, it's like innovated these concepts and all this kind of stuff. And I don't really think it did. For me, it was just like very flawlessly executed, the game. Like playing through it all, I'm like, wow, that was a cool ride. And even I, at the end of it, was like, I don't get why people are saying this is the best game of all time, like beating the game. But, like I said, having said that, I do think it was insanely highly executed. So I'm almost like agreeing with you to a degree that it's overrated in the elements that people talk about it in. But I don't think it's overrated in being like a 10 out of 10. Like I could see that. I wouldn't give it a 10 out of 10, but I could see why people do. Interesting. Mike, what's your second? This is like we're fucking blowing ourselves up here. I love it.
Yep. I can't
Go,
wait
Mike.
for the fan
Go,
mail. So this
People
is
literally jumped off the stream. I could see it dropping off. But yeah, go, Mike.
I wasn't sure, was it? So this is less. This is probably less controversial, but I think I would say the majority of games have shit stories.
Oh, dude, this is almost stealing my one.
Well, I think of that. It's
Wait,
definitely
you
an
always
opinion
like
I've had.
you always like
I didn't steal
disagree
it,
with
though.
my opinion.
No, I don't. I always thought I knew you had this opinion as well, so I'm hoping you don't have it as part of your three.
I don't,
But no,
I don't.
I agreed with this opinion. I really do think that there's so many games that it's not that I still follow the story, or at least I try to follow the story. It's just that it's so mundane and bullshit and inane in so many instances that I'm like, where the fuck do they get the writers from on some of these games? They could have so many more cool concepts and ideas, and this is why I play a game like Disco Elysium, and it just stands out because of the fact that it's so different and the way it tells the story and the elements of the story and how mature the story is.
Mike,
And
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Sex just wasn't an award-winning screenplay. I'm sorry.
Well, whatever the dude's name was. Well, I don't know who wrote it.
Yeah, let's not dox them again, but yeah. Okay.
There were two dudes. Anyway.
Come on.
So that's it. I don't know what you guys think. Do games have okay stories, or are they generally?
Can I challenge
shit?
you on one thing though? I don't think anyone is saying that they do have great stories. Am I wrong with that?
No, I think most people think they're okay.
Okay.
To me, it depends on the games. Like, because you've got a lot, like 75% of the games out there aren't even meant to have a good story. So if you even solo them away and just look at, okay, the 25% that are trying to have a good story, even those, like 80% of them are probably going to be mundane crap, right? Because video games just haven't progressed to the point where they're at the level of some of the higher quality TV shows and movies and stuff like that. But the thing that I have issue with that is that there are a lot of game stories that I do like. Now,
Likewise,
I'm treating the story separate from like the dialogue and voice acting, because like game dialogue has generally been pretty crap.
Okay,
It
fair
always
point.
has
Yep,
been.
yep.
Whereas the overarching story and plot can actually be interesting. So it's kind of like it's a bit of a balance.
No, you're right. It's a tough one. I mean, you're right, and it depends how you split it up. I just think holistically, there's a lot of games that have really cool concepts, or might have really good bits of conversation or dialogue in it, or the overarching story might be okay, but then the details are just absolutely shit. And that's not for all stories. I think there's some really amazingly written stories and amazing games that I think are better than films and books that I've read. So, but I just think holistically, not enough effort is put into, and especially games I feel that are very story driven, like some RPGs.
Or like Final Fantasy.
Or Final Fantasy is probably a good example.
I'd say Final Fantasy is a good
my
example of
God.
what I was saying, that I think the overarching story and plot of a game of Final Fantasy 7 is pretty decent, whereas the dialogue is pretty poor. So it's like that's an example there. So
Look, I agree with your opinion, Mike. I think, but I think it's because the history and the psychology of games and where they've come from as a medium. It's never started from a narrative perspective. It started from gameplay. And I think that will always be seeded in what video games are. And I think it takes a lot to break out of that. And I think also there's just so much more you can do to get away with things instead of have story. So it's a crutch, a lot of things. Like, you know, the fun of multiplayer, playing with friends, gameplay, design elements, visuals, sound. You know, you could do so much more with the video game that it just becomes the sort of backseat thing. You hear like with id, you know, like John Carmack's like, fucking story. He gives a fuck about the story. Just get into the game, right? Like he hated when id were talking about like having really crazy stories in their games. Like, I don't know. I think that psychology ultimately permeates through all games.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
I agree with you, man. I agree with you. I don't think that's super controversial. So my second one is that out of all the major mediums, that gamers are the worst fucking gatekeepers out of all of them. Not the music, musos, records, you know, into this 70s band, blah, blah, blah. Movies, you know, you don't like this, you know, Scorsese film from the 70s, blah, blah, blah. Gamers are the worst fucking gatekeepers. Gamers are so fucking obnoxious that you beat a game and then people go, oh, you use spirit summons in Elden Ring? Oh, okay, ease mode. Oh, okay, cool. Like, fuck you. Like, I hate this shit. And I don't know why it's in the culture of gaming, but it's like so deeply entrenched that like people will talk about it in reviews. They'll talk about it in podcasts. Just like, it's like a popular, normal opinion to be going, oh, people play it on easy mode and I have to excuse that. It's like, I don't give a fuck if you play it on easy mode. Who cares? That's your experience with a game. Why are people treating it like, oh, it doesn't count because you didn't play the game on the normal or difficult or like hardest difficulty? So that is my opinion, that gamers are the worst gatekeepers.
So far, I don't think either of your two so far are actually. I don't consider them unpopular.
But no,
I think maybe. Well, I don't know.
No, I think they're unpopular. You don't think they're unpopular?
Because the thing is, when you're specifically saying gatekeeping, you're not saying like toxic or anything. Because if I think about it, like 100%, like the difficulty thing is such a good example of that. Because you don't have, someone played this metal song, but they didn't play it exactly like it's played on the record. You know, there's a tiny bit of that, but there's not gaming.
It's not pervasive.
No.
But I think it is unpopular what I'm saying because everyone does it and it's like super accepted. Like super accepted in terms of people commenting about games, you know, like discussing it on podcasts, news sites, everything. I don't know. I think
But then I do see a lot of articles that also end with, and that's okay. As in, oh, you may not be good at blah, 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 but that's okay. Oh, you may have used spirit summons and feel like you were cheating, but that's okay. Like, they're encouraging you and patting you on the back that it's fine. It's okay. Have you not seen those articles? I'll link you to those articles after this.
But this is
which
my
is kind of
point.
the opposite, but
this is kind of my point, though. It shouldn't even be something of note. This is my whole point, right?
You play the game however the fuck you want to
Exactly.
play the game. Yeah.
All right. Swinny, what's your second?
My second
This is a fun segment, by the way.
Yeah, this one's going to be an interesting one.
Yeah, go on.
And there's a bit of a caveat to it. But anyway, I think GTA 2 is the best GTA game.
Okay, that is controversial. That is. Let me.
I knew the
put my
contrarian would
sleeves up.
shine.
Of course you would. The worst GTA there ever was.
Can I say I'm all fucking for this opinion? I'm behind Sweeney.
This is a unpopular opinion.
I legitimately like GTA 2 the most out of all the GTA games that I've played. Now, I will say that I haven't beaten all of GTA 5, but I have played through GTA 1, GTA 3, Vice City, San Andreas, GTA 4, you know, played through a lot of GTA Chinatown Wars, and, you know, I feel like I've played the majority of the games. And the one that still was the most fun to me was GTA 2, and I think that is vastly underrated. And it was before, I think that was like I don't think they'd become Rockstar yet at that point. I think it was still DMA design.
Yep.
And the game gets so overlooked. And to me, I think it's the best one because it's kind of after that, they started to get all narrative heavy. And while some of the stories and side quests in those games are good, later games are good, I like them. Something just about GTA 2 was just really, really fun. But this has a second part.
Oh,
Well, are you going to move off this GTA point?
No.
Because I agree with you, man. But yeah, go on.
My second part is, and Sleeping Dogs is the best GTA style game ever. That beats all the GTA.
But that's not unpopular, but
That is
hang
not
of
that unpopular. So it's just like the second
Dude, of
part.
course
Of it.
it's
it's a
unpopular
bloody awesome
opinion.
game.
That's
Yeah.
an
Sleeping
unpopular
Dogs is
opinion.
great. It has Opeth on the soundtrack. Come on.
But
That's
that is
an
an
amazing
unpopular
game.
opinion. That's definitely an unpopular
The
opinion.
first one is super unpopular. I think there's probably like a dozen of you that think like that.
So what you're saying the first sleep? What are we saying here?
No, he's
No,
saying
I'm saying that
first part of
GTA
my
2 was my least favorite one. Absolutely.
Oh,
I just didn't. It didn't click with me as much as the original. The original, I loved it. I was even modding it back in the day.
I like the
This
original as
number
well.
two's like,
I got nothing to say about
Dark and shit.
Sleeping Dogs.
it's an amazing game.
Just on like open world games, like GTA, for whatever reason, like 3 and beyond. Like I tried to play GTA 4. I've spoken to you about this a lot of times, Mike. I just cannot get into that game. I find it like painful, like boring and painful, and I hate the writing in that game with a passion.
And number 4, yeah.
And like same as 5.
But you played
I've watched
5
a lot,
yet?
no,
Oh,
I've
even
watched a lot
5.
of. I haven't played 5,
Damn.
but I think I have actually. But I've mostly watched a lot of stuff on it, and I just find the writing so painful in that series. It doesn't click with me at all. It's like similar to the Marvel thing. Like I get that people love Marvel. Obviously, look how well it performs, right?
This is a bonus unpopular opinion from me too, out here.
But it's just like, to me, the shittiest, most like moronic writing, and it's like, okay.
People are gonna love us after the second.
But dude, I agree. I
best.
was listening to a podcast and they were talking about GTA, and they go, "Oh, GTA 1 and 2, that doesn't even count. Like the series started with GTA 3." I'm like, "Fuck off,
What?
man! I actually
Totally
like
counts.
GTA 2 more than
Yeah.
all these other games. I've played it more, and I felt like playing it
Number
more."
1 was my fav.
And then I don't know if you guys have played this game, but Retro City Rampage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I started playing that, I'm like, fuck, I'm having way more fun than I do with GTA 4 and 5
Well,
and 3 as well. It's
whatever,
like,
man.
shit.
Certain
So,
things click for
I
certain
like this.
people.
This is a good segment. This is juicy.
All right, it's a guy.
All right. No, it's Mike's last one, isn't it?
Oh,
I think it's my last one. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
I've already
you're
done
right,
two.
sorry.
Yeah,
We've all
you're
done
right,
two.
you're
We've all
Okay.
done two. Wait, who
So-
thinks they have the juiciest one for their third? Does anyone
I
know?
Well, it sounds like that one was my juiciest based on
That
your
was pretty
response.
good.
that was
but
probably legit juicy. Yeah.
I kind of
like
have
that
a
one.
juicy one.
Okay.
So.
Well, you
Okay.
go last then. Yeah, go, Mike.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if this is juicy enough, and I don't know how to phrase this, to be honest. But what I'm trying to say is, I don't like the fact that studios rely on cash cows for their games.
Oh, but that's not unpopular. Everyone.
I don't like Mario. Is that,
Oh, you mean cash? You mean
I
cash
hate
cow?
Mario.
Cash cow IPs. Cash cow
I feel
IPs.
like,
Cash
I
cow
feel like
yeah.
you changed it halfway through and said, I don't
Well, no,
like
but
Mario.
because I'm trying to use an example. I'm trying to use an
I
example.
fucking hate Zelda.
Well, exactly. I'm trying to use an example that solidifies this. I hate Zelda. Well, not Zelda. I hate Link. / Zelda, whatever, the whole bloody thing. And I hate Mario. I hate the fact that all those games are set in the same bloody universe with the same shit over and over again. If they could take that game and just create new characters with
So it
a
wouldn't be a
new
Zelda
kind
game
of
then,
world thing, I would enjoy them more. So take Mario, for example. They ran out of ideas of what the hell Mario can possibly do because he only jumps on people's heads, basically.
I totally disagree with that.
That's the main thing.
You're
Anyway, I'm just
ignorant.
saying.
Have you
whatever,
played
I
Mario
them.
Odyssey?
Well, that's what I'm trying to
Galaxy.
say. Then they went, let's give him a hat. And then he uses his hat to do shit. Because what else are we going to do? So what I'm saying is, if they had a different
This
character...
is a real unpopular one.
If they had a different character that wasn't Mario, it was some random, like, Fario or whatever, not even anything related to it. And exactly the same concept,
Wario.
same elements. No, not even that. Nothing in the whole Mario franchise.
So when he hit the microphone with his head, he got knocked out by that point.
I don't like franchises. Is probably what it comes down to. I think they're milked too much.
I don't like franchises. What's
it
your
puts me-
opinion?
My opinion is that they're milking franchises too much, and I think games would be better if they didn't rely so much on franchises.
Okay, well I can get on board with that being an unpopular opinion because people love franchises. Look
I
at
know
Call
they
of
love
Duty.
franchises.
What are we up to? Call of Duty 29 or something now?
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, Swinny, you're on
You
mute.
knocked the microphone so hard it
Yeah,
broke.
you knocked you on mute.
To me, like an example of that is I'm waiting for a new F-Zero for so long.
Yeah,
And
you've even created your own F-Zero's pitch.
In the you've got games that are F-Zero like that have come out that are decent.
Wipeout.
But I'm not talking Wipeout, like Redout and things, games that
okay,
are
yeah.
closer to F-Zero. But I'm not as interested in them because I want F-Zero. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like
I
a
get
lot of it is that kind of IP, as you said. So it's interesting one.
Familiarity or something.
Yeah.
No, it's not to say that I don't like familiarity in games. I'm looking forward to the next Witcher, for example, and the affinity to the characters and stuff like that. But there is a big part of me that I think might enjoy the next game more if it didn't have Geralt in it. If it had different characters in it. It was sort of heck, if it wasn't even set in the same world, if it had kind of a different same theme with dragons and monsters and shit, but nothing to do with witches and whatnot, I think I would probably enjoy it even more than I would another Witcher game in that sense.
I feel like you're losing the grip on what the point was.
Well, the point is just franchises, rehashing and reusing the same characters, the same concepts, the same things and elements and ideas just to sell a game because they know it sells.
But I feel like you are for that. Maybe it's just you don't like Mario and Zelda.
No,
Because
no, no, I'm not. No, I'm saying I'm not for that because even a Witcher, I prefer to not have a Witcher 4. I
But then
prefer
think
to have
about,
something
like,
different.
Forza Horizon 5. That's like exactly like 3 and 4.
Yeah, and that's why I didn't rate it well. Remember when I reviewed it, I'm like, it's the same fucking game as 4.
But you played the
I
hell out
wasn't-
of it, didn't you?
Because it's like playing number 4 but with different cars in a different place. But I didn't rate it as highly as other people did. I'm like, I don't really, and it's funny because the racing game is a bit different. But anyway,
Mike, I know you were away the episode that we talked about the fact that Witcher 4 is coming, and
Yes,
we talked
I'm
about that. So
aware of
maybe
that.
you can go and watch that because we talk about whether or not it will include who the main protagonist
new
is.
house.
it might not be. I did
new
hear that,
house.
which is good news for me. Not that I'm over Geralt, but maybe I kind of am, to be
Give it
honest.
5 years. Give it 5 years.
It's
when it
someone
comes out.
new.
All right, my unpopular opinion is Game Pass is an overall negative for the industry.
Ooh,
I think Game Pass is
okay.
bad. I think
Walk
Game
us
Pass
through
is
that.
bad for the
I
industry.
think Game Pass is bad. It's too high. The
trying to-
rent is too damn high.
I'm trying to channel my inner Fox News. Yeah, I think it's bad. I think that's similar to what has happened with Netflix. I feel like that can give you insights into what's going to happen with Game Pass and gaming. That
what
Netflix
happened?
started hot, and then over time, it's like we need to pump so much content out that if you check the Netflix originals, the amount of shit that they pump out to get enough content for people to consume their murder mysteries and all this kind of
There's a
crap.
lot.
It's gone to shit in Netflix, right? And I'm already starting to see the dynamic with Game Pass where there's some crackers on there. Like, and I even said it earlier, like, Guardians of the Galaxy, I'll play that. That's on Game Pass. But again, that's a game that didn't sell that well in the grand scheme of things and how much it should have sold, like according to Square Enix. And I just think the dynamic of it and it's more about a content game. Like, I actually thought the opposite initially. It's like, okay, you don't have to worry about selling the game. It means that high quality games can surface up. But I almost feel like it's the opposite. It's like, we just need to get a lot of games in there. And it's going to encourage people to sort of create these 7 or 8 out of 10 games. And there's absolutely no incentive to have an Elden Ring go on a Game Pass. So, and I'll be fascinated to see how Microsoft goes. They've got like
Starfield,
40 studios or something like that. Yeah, but dude, like the amount of studios they've bought compared to, like, if I look at the output from PlayStation first party studios, I don't know, man. Like, I'd take that any day over what's happened with Microsoft so far. So
Okay, it is unpopular.
that's my
All that,
opinion.
all that
Overall, it's
stuff
negative.
all that stuff from the exhibitions hasn't come to fruition yet, though. So I don't think we can judge that until that point, but like it very much could end up the same way. But I just think we've got to keep in mind that think back to when they purchased Double Fine and like Ninja Theory and all that stuff. Like that stuff's just starting to trickle out now. So.
But that's not stuff that came like not organically is the wrong word, but wasn't produced from the start under the auspices of it's going on Game Pass, right? Like, so what I'm saying, I feel like won't be tested until like 5 years from now.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
yeah, okay, cool. Yeah. But I just think, like, the more I see it, more I think about it, I'm like, this is going to be bad for the industry. And, like, I actually hope in some ways it dies, but it won't. Like, there's no way it will. So...
Well, all I know is other than the games I talked about that I purchased earlier, I'd bought barely any games in the last 12 months other than like my Chemco RPGs and Elden Ring. Because there's just so much shit on Game Pass. So from me, from a financial standpoint, it's been great.
Yeah, but maybe Swinny,
and
stop being so selfish.
So much shit
stop
on
being so
Game Pass.
selfish, Swinny. You should stop ruining the industry.
And I'm perfectly fine with games that are 6, 7s, and 8s. So, because to me, they end up being a lot of the games I love. So,
Hey, dude, I'm like a 5, and my girlfriend's perfectly fine with me. So,
all right. Take us home, Swinny.
That was a good one.
Take us
all
home.
All right. I've got to explain this one. Right. I will start with
It's always
the
a good
clickbait.
start.
I will start with the clickbait wording of it, though. In many ways, Final Fantasy VIII is a better game than Final Fantasy VII.
in many ways.
In many ways.
In many ways. That's ridiculous.
I guess there's more polygons.
That is a massive this is the most clickbait you've ever been.
Very
that is a clickbait. Now the
I reckon
actual
GTA is more clickbaity than this, but yeah.
No.
Now the actual explanation. Final Fantasy VIII to me has a better story, world, and characters than Final Fantasy VII. It's graphically better, but that's a given. Like I'm not even comparing that because it's unfair, that one. But from a gameplay and systems-wise standpoint, Final Fantasy VII is a much better game. So, but the thing is, to me, like a big part of why I love the Final Fantasy games is the overarching world they build, the characters that are in your party, and the plot and the twists and everything. And upon replaying Final Fantasy VIII a few times over the last couple of years, I have come to realize that, I used to hate that game when I first played it on the PlayStation. And I've also replayed Final Fantasy VII quite a few times. And it's like the scales of like balance themselves where I almost consider the two games on an equal footing in terms of how I feel about them overall. But with Final Fantasy VIII, to me, like, all the characters feel like they have a role in the story. They all they have a purpose. Whereas with Final Fantasy VII, there's some characters that okay, they're super important, but there's other party members you're like they just feel out of place, and literally you can not have them there, and it doesn't change the story. And I know that's a common thing with RPGs. Chrono Cross is an example where that's horrible, but to me, Final Fantasy VIII is the opposite, and I love the world they build with the Balam Garden and the different gardens where they've got and all the political games. If anyone doesn't know, Garden is like the name of like the big mercenary schools that they have. And I just love the world more than Final Fantasy VII's. And the thing is, Final Fantasy VIII, as I said, systems wise is a broken game, but it's almost at a point where it's so broken that it's almost fun to exploit the junction and card mod systems where it's like, okay, how overpowered can I get it? And it's almost a fun challenge in that sense. But when it comes to just overall, like I just have much more of a connection to the world of Final Fantasy VIII, which is, I feel, especially compared to 7, a very unpopular opinion because Final Fantasy VIII is like the black sheep of that part of the franchise. The only thing is the villain, Final Fantasy VII, Sephiroth, is way better than the eventual villain of Final Fantasy VIII. But other than that, I don't know yet. Like, I'm not going to be doing a Final Fantasy overall tier list. I wouldn't know where I'd rank the two close to each other. I wouldn't know. But a lot of people, and the thumbnail for this segment will be very clickbaity, but I do feel that Final Fantasy VIII in many ways is a better game than Final Fantasy VII.
It's kind of interesting because when Final Fantasy VIII came out, it was very well regarded and scored similarly to Final Fantasy VII. But as the years have passed, There's been a massive divide over time where people are just like, oh, Final Fantasy VII is clearly the best game of that era, out of Final Fantasy VI.
I think it was more
8, 9.
groundbreaking, right? Because there was a leap from 6 to 7.
Yeah,
It felt like quite a bit of a
definitely.
leap, and there was definitely a leap between 7 to 8, but not as great. And I think that's why it's more memorable in people's heads. What do you think of Final Fantasy 13 though? Best game ever?
I think Final Fantasy. Hey, did you not hear my quick speed
I
through?
did.
I said,
That's why I'm like, what the
I said it's a fantastic
hell is wrong
game.
with you tonight?
It is a fantastic game. It is horrible first 10 hours, but it's a fantastic game
That's
after
fair
that.
enough. Like I'm still salty that I spent $140 on that game, and
You should have
probably
played
it
more.
for 2 hours, and I went, fuck this.
You should have played more of it.
I know, but it was hard. It was just corridor after corridor after corridor.
Is that the game
shit.
where it's just like 15 hours of going in the same direction, like on a bridge or
Yes.
something?
Yes,
so
basically.
it's linear, and then it opens a bit. But the thing is, it's not the thing.
15 hours.
Anyway, I will talk about Final Fantasy 13 and what I love about that game. When I will talk about Final Fantasy 13, what I love about the game when I eventually do my Final Fantasy battle system tier list.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that. I think you've won the competition of who's got the most controversial, unpopular opinion, Swinny, with the GTA 2 thing.
I actually ordered these
That's the
thinking
winner.
Final Fantasy 8 would be more, but
Nah.
No,
GTA
I
2
feel like
GTA
this
2.
is more. Yeah.
See, people don't even consider GTA 1 and 2 a part of that
Oh,
series.
go fuck
That's
yourself.
weird. Yeah.
But Final Fantasy 7, 8, they all count. Like that. I hear a lot of people, like I think Final Fantasy 6 shits all over Final Fantasy 7. So we've got Final Fantasy 7
totally
surrounded.
Yeah. Hey, I think it's still Final Fantasy 7 was still my favorite, but I don't have the experience that Swinny does. So he's played them all to bits. So I take his word more than mine.
We need to write these down because I've forgotten what Mike's are. I'll add mine in. I don't remember what yours were, Mike.
can send them.
But yeah, no, that was a really funny segment.